So we know the Trump administration loves to do stuff thinking that we're not paying attention. But those of us here at the Katie Phang News Channel, all of you tuning in and listening, we're paying attention. So what just happened this past Friday? Very quietly, so that maybe people wouldn't know. Attorney General Pam Bondi, as she's scrambling to have to cover her ass in light of the Epstein files and the fact that there's a total mutiny and civil war going on in MAGA-land, tears, not. What did she do? She fires her personal ethics chief. Okay, so we're going to take a minute right there. I know. I share your laughter, your skepticism, and the eye rolling when it comes to the idea that Attorney General Pamela Jo has a personal ethics chief. And yet, yes, when you work at the Department of Justice, the reason why you need an ethics chief is so that you don't run afoul of ethics. And yes, I know that the Trump administration Department of Justice has problems with ethics day in and day out. However, that doesn't mean that that watchdog shouldn't be there to keep tabs on that department. It's arguably the most important department. Wouldn't you think? The Department of Justice, putting that in quotes. So here we go. On Friday, with no fanfare and with no news. But the intrepid Bloomberg reporter over here keeping tabs on this, I want to give him attribution, Ben Penn, reporting that Attorney General Pam Bondi fired her personal ethics advisor on Friday. Joseph Terrell, Tirrell, career DOJ attorney who spent nearly 20 years at the Department of Justice. Footnote, 20 years means what, people? Different administrations, Republican and Democrats, right? That's the stuff you always know. When you got career DOJ attorneys or employees or officials, people who have been through different administrations, there is some suggestion that there is a fair and impartial eye or hand that is being dealt by this person. It's an assumption, but in this instance, it's an accurate one. Terrell spent nearly 20 years at the DOJ. He received a termination letter from Bondi on Friday, July 11th, that did not state a reason for his immediate removal from federal service. It's like breaking up via Post-it, isn't it? Here's a letter. Have a nice day. Peace out. You don't have a job anymore. Apparently, sources are telling this reporter at Bloomberg that Bondi cited Article 2 of the Constitution, which concerns presidential powers. What does that tell you? And apparently, the notice that Mr. Terrell got was similar to the ones that other DOJ civil servants are getting. So it's not like you get special treatment. Terrell used to work at the FBI. He served 10 years at the FBI, came to the DOJ in 2018, headed up the DOJ's ethics office. What did his job include? Listen to this. Reviewing and approving financial disclosures. Oh, that's important. Recusals. Also important. Waivers to conflicts of interest in any administration, one of the most critical ones in the Trump administration. And advice on travel and gifts for not only Bondi, but Deputy Attorney General Todd Blanche, FBI Director Kash Patel, and other DOJ leaders. So basically a consigliere, but one who's supposed to be objective and tell you, can't do that. And these are the people that you always have to have on your shoulder, right? The angel and the devil. You always have to have the angel there to tell you when you're going to run afoul of ethics rules and laws. Because why the hell not? What harm is there in having somebody who is an ethics kind of guru who's kind of keeping an eye on you and others? Because if you're not doing anything wrong, you shouldn't have a problem having that man there. Terrell also oversaw a team of ethics staffers that provided guidance to employees in all of the DOJ's litigating offices, law enforcement agencies, and other branches, period. That is so important, right? So it's not just the DOJ leaders and the FBI leaders and the other major agency leaders that are getting this advice, but he is overseeing an entire staff that is giving counsel to the FBI and other law enforcement agencies and the litigating offices. And remember, what have we been talking about here at the Katie Phang News Channel? Emile Bove putting pressure, Todd Blanche putting pressure. You know, you've got DOJ lawyers being fired for their work and being impartial and speaking up when they're being forced or pressured to do something wrong or unethical. I mean, we're seeing this. We have a DOJ whistleblower who's come forward that has damning evidence against Emile Bove. So these are the things that you need to have. You need to have people that are going to be giving this advice. And now this man who is overseeing all of that has been booted by Pamela Jo. It says here in the article that Terrell's removal is separate but potentially related to the other roughly 20 employees involved in Special Counsel Jack Smith's investigations who were also fired this Friday on July 11th. Talk about cleaning house, but not in a good way. Terrell advised Jack Smith's office on ethics matters during his criminal prosecutions of Donald Trump. You don't say. And we know that Donald Trump hates Jack Smith. Pam Bondi removed and reassigned other career DOJ officials in charge of internal checks on the conduct of the DOJ. That includes Bradley Weinsheimer, an associate deputy attorney general who made the final calls on Terrell's ethics decisions. So wait a second. So not only did Terrell oversee Bondi and others in a good way, but he actually had somebody who signed off on it or made the final call. I mean, talk about a very important backstop, so that not one person would have that role of superseding incredible power at the DOJ. And yet, Pam Bondi decided to get rid of him, as well as the guy, Bradley Weinsheimer, who was the final call maker on Terrell's ethics decisions. She also removed or reassigned Jeffrey Ragsdale, who led the Professional Responsibility Office that investigated attorney misconduct. Free for all in this place, right? Trump, in February, got rid of the head of the Office of Government Ethics, an agency that would actually regularly consult with Terrell's team on conflicts and disclosures of political appointees. Joseph Terrell posted on his LinkedIn profile just a few hours ago. He acknowledged receiving this letter that you're seeing on your screen right now from the Office of the Attorney General, Memorandum for Joseph W. Terrell, and it just says, here's your official notice that you are removed from your position as Director, Departmental Ethics Office, Justice Management Division, and from the Federal Service effective immediately. It cites to Article 2 of the U.S. Constitution and the laws of the U.S., just summarily says your employment with the Department of Justice is hereby terminated and you are removed from federal service effective immediately. It's dated July 11th, 2025, and it's signed by Pamela Jo Bondi. And in his LinkedIn post, Mr. Terrell notes that his career in public service has spanned a quarter of a century, starting as a United States naval officer, becoming a lawyer, being at the FBI beginning in 2006, and then he moved to the Department of Ethics Office at Maine Justice as deputy director. And in 2023, he was promoted to the senior executive service and the position of director of the ethics office. And here's where he definitely zings Bondi and others. He says, I took the oath at 18 as a midshipman to support and defend the Constitution of the United States. I have taken that oath at least 5 more times since then. That oath did not come with the caveat that I need only support the Constitution when it is easy or convenient. I look forward to finding ways to continue in my personal calling of service to my country. And then he goes on to quote Dr. Martin Luther King Jr. The arc of the moral universe is long, but it bends toward justice. He also said that he believes that Edmund Burke is right and that the only thing necessary for the triumph of evil is for good people to do nothing. He then graciously thanks people that have reached out to send him support and to send him love. These are the kind of people that we want to be heading up our ethics watchdog offices. Mr. Terrell is the kind of person that you want to be the stalwart defender of what is right against what is wrong. It is such a huge red flag that the Trump administration is using a chainsaw to destroy our federal agencies and to eliminate from critical positions people like Joseph Terrell, who have done nothing but pledge through a career of public service and a career of massive sacrifice to defend the United States Constitution against all enemies, foreign and domestic. My hat off to Mr. Joseph Terrell for being so noble and to have the integrity to speak out about his termination from his role at the Department of Justice. Thank you for your service, always. And I am looking forward to seeing what Mr. Terrell ends up doing in his next chapter as well. So this is in conjunction with Another move that happened a few weeks ago at the end of June. That is when Michael Horowitz, who for 13 years was the DOJ's top inspector general, he left the DOJ to go work at the Federal Reserve. And at the time, he did not have a named successor. Okay, so here's the thing. Horowitz leaves at the end of June to go to the Federal Reserve, when really his role over 13 years as Inspector General was really important at the DOJ. So listen to this. The day after terminating a dozen inspectors general in January 24th, Trump told reporters, Michael Horowitz we are keeping. So it seemed like Horowitz was going to stay. But what ended up happening, and by the way, there is bipartisan support for somebody like Michael Horowitz. If you ask people that are Democrats or Republicans, they will say that they actually supported Michael Horowitz because he purportedly was calling balls and strikes the way they should be. And when you're an inspector general, you need good, fair, decent, ethically driven inspectors general. And so they're saying that Michael Horowitz did that. Democratic lawmakers asked Horowitz in recent months to not only investigate Pamela Joe over her legal approval of Trump's luxury airplane gift from Qatar, you know, that $400 million jet from Qatar, but also to investigate Kash Patel, the FBI director, because he directed a purge of FBI employees before he was confirmed as director, and senior DOJ official Emil Bovee for ordering the dismissal of charges against New York Mayor Eric Adams, which we've covered extensively here at the Katie Phang News Channel. In his final week on the job, Horowitz received a whistleblower complaint from a fired department lawyer alleging that Bovee instructed government lawyers to ignore court orders. We just covered that on Friday here on my channel, right? That's that big whistleblower complaint. A day later, Senate Democrats wrote Horowitz to request an investigation into Todd Blanche for allegedly lying during his Senate confirmation hearing. And then Michael Horowitz is moved to the Federal Reserve. The watchdog office that Michael Horowitz is running up at the DOJ, heading up, took on numerous audits of DOJ grants, federal prison operations, and contractors. Did somebody say immigration detention facilities? The White House has proposed reducing OIG personnel by 140, saying, quote, the scope and frequency of independent oversight will be significantly curtailed. Of course it will be. Why would you ever allow somebody to have oversight over you when you're doing something illegal and criminal and wrong? Cynthia Schneider, a former deputy and acting DOJ Inspector General herself, said she fears the possibility of biased, targeted investigations of those who Trump doesn't like. Those IG reports could be misused in some way. And lo and behold, what happened last week? Again, I know, folks, it's like drinking from a fire hose, and yet we have always made sure that you knew what was going on. So what happened last week in the midst of the insanity of the Epstein files? Which is still ongoing, we know. The Department of Justice announced that it had opened criminal probes into former FBI Director James Comey as well as former CI Director John Brennan. Two very public figures that factored into Donald Trump and the investigation into Russian interference in the 2016 presidential campaign. A DOJ spokesperson referenced a, quote, criminal investigation into Comey and to Brennan, but said the department doesn't comment on ongoing investigations. So if you don't comment, why are you saying that there's a criminal investigation? Oh, because you want the red meat MAGA base to be salivating at the idea that Comey and Brennan, two outspoken critics of Donald Trump, that they now have criminal investigations against them. Remember about weaponizing the Department of Justice and weaponizing the federal government? Every accusation is a confession by Republicans. Every accusation is a confession by Donald Trump. He likes to whine and bitch and complain that Biden weaponized the federal government and that Biden and other Democrat presidents have done something like that. And yet that is exactly what this man is doing. His campaign of retribution means he is weaponizing every single freaking angle of the federal government against his perceived political opponents and enemies. The Washington Post did confirm that CIA Director John Ratcliffe made a referral to the FBI last week for a criminal investigation of John Brennan for allegedly lying to Congress. The scope and nature of the criminal investigation into Jim Comey remains unclear. Now, again, I want to remind everybody, this is going on last week during the midst of that insanity involving the Epstein files, because it's a distract. It's a distraction thing. Hey, don't look at the shiny thing, here, right? Look at the shiny thing here. Don't pay attention to the Epstein stuff, which clearly goes to show that MAGA loves conspiracy theories and that there is something that's being hidden from the American people, because why not disclose the entirety of the Epstein files? But hey, look at this, Russian hoax, right? But luckily for us, we're not that distracted. Trump and his allies vowed on the campaign trail to exact retribution. Of course he did. Remember, I said a campaign of retribution. Now, here's the crazy thing. So CIA Director John Ratcliffe says this last week. He said that there were objections within the CIA about including the Steele dossier in this big intelligence assessment that was done in 2017 about Russian interference. And Ratcliffe says, quote, despite those objections, Brennan showed a preference for narrative consistency over analytical soundness, end quote. Pardon my French, but are you fucking kidding me? A preference for narrative consistency over analytical soundness? That is exactly what the Republicans do. Republicans, and Trump especially, love to advance a narrative, and a consistent narrative, than actual analytical soundness, than actual reality. But Ratcliffe wants to accuse John Brennan of doing that? Because here's the thing. John Brennan accurately spoke about what the CIA's intelligence assessment was. Because remember, ahead of the 2020 election, a Senate committee, investigative committee, that was a foreign relations committee that was led by Republicans, they released a 5-volume report that detailed Russia's interference in the 2016 campaign. It was 1,313 pages. It covered extensive Russian cyber and influence operations targeting our democratic processes and the U.S. government response. That part is true. Now, this NBC News article is great because it says here, the report concluded that the 2017 intelligence assessment, including its ultimate conclusion that Russian interference was real and widespread, was not politically motivated. The Foreign Relations Committee's acting chair lauded the report. No probe into this matter has been more exhaustive, he said in a statement. We found irrefutable evidence of Russian meddling. You want to know who that person was? That was Senator Marco Rubio. Marco Rubio, when he had a spine and was telling the truth, told the truth about the extent of Russian meddling in our United States democratic processes. So Brennan is being accused of lying to Congress? That's absurd. Furthermore, let the record reflect. John Brennan and Jim Comey also appear in a book entitled Members of the Executive Branch Deep State, the annex entitled Members of the Executive Branch Deep State from the book by FBI Director Kash Patel entitled Government Gangsters. That annex has been colloquially referred to and confirmed by Patel when he was saying, no, there's no enemies list, but everybody says that that's being referred to as the enemies list. So again, you want to talk about political retribution? Again, it's a specialty for the Trump administration, but in this instance, it is so obvious that this is just retaliation against Brennan and against Comey. And also because Comey recently has also been under an investigation for the 8647 seashell thing, which is just dumb in terms of the investigation itself. People, you need to have ethics czars. You need to have people that are ethics watchdogs. Like, you need to have people that are sitting in ethical judgment of somebody who has so much power to wield. So when you see somebody like Attorney General Pam Bondi getting rid of her own personal ethics advisor, that's a level of arrogance, which is unheard of, right? I mean, consistent with them, but really just so obnoxious. How arrogant can you be that you think that you couldn't benefit from an ethics advisor, especially one that has always been there, knows the ins and outs, and it's just a staple to have an ethics advisor at that level if you're the head of the DOJ. But then this wholesale kind of elimination of people, of personnel, elimination of inspectors general, which are also, important watchdogs, I mean, this sends a very clear sign, right? Which is the convicts are running the prison now. I mean, if you get rid of the wardens and you get rid of all of the officers and you get rid of all the correction staff, what do you have left? You're just left with the convicts. You're just left with the criminals. They're running the prisons now. So there's the weaponization of investigations. We're going to go after our enemies. We're going to go after our targeted, opposition. That's the game plan. That is an autocratic way of life. That's fascism, people. Don't believe me? Look at history. MAGA, Republicans, they need to use their critical thinking skills. If they think that they would not be in the crosshairs, they got another thing coming. Just ask Pamela Joe. She's having a rough week, isn't she? You got MAGA world turning on her. And listen, whether it's justifiable or not vis-a-vis the Epstein files, look, they are fickle mofos. That's all I gotta say. Be mad, be outraged, demand accountability, but make sure you spread the word about what we're doing here at the Katie Phang News Channel, because I want to make sure that you always know what's going on. I'll catch you on the other side. Katie Phang here. The truth matters now more than ever. So hit that subscribe button so you don't miss a thing. Thanks for watching.